My name is Juan Carlos Fierro. Each week I explore the most pressing issues of our time, bringing you thought-provoking discussions and eye-opening revelations that will challenge what you thought you knew. Prepare to have your perspective challenged. Juan Carlos Fierro, fearless, factual, and unfiltered. Good morning. I have today Scott Parkinson. He's a good friend of mine, and he's also running for the U.S. Senate for the state of Virginia.
Thanks for having me, Juan Carlos.
I just wanted to start with introducing yourself to see why you're running for Senate, information about your family, your background.
Yeah, so I'm 41 years old. I moved to Arlington in 2009, about 15 years ago. And my wife and I are really committed to our community. All 4 of our children were born here. We own our house. We're Cherrydale Baptist members. And for a long time, I worked on Capitol Hill. I worked for 3 United States senators. And then I went over to the House of Representatives, working as a senior staffer at the Republican Study Committee, serving as their executive director underneath 2 chairmen. And then I was Ron DeSantis' chief of staff in 2018 when he ran for governor. And for really a long time, I was content in being the guy behind the guy and being a staffer on Capitol Hill. But honestly, when COVID hit, I started to reevaluate my own standing as it pertains to other politicians on public policy and really the ability to stand up in a courageous way to defend our rights. When COVID hit, they shut down our economy, they shut down our schools, they shut down our churches. And I didn't feel like there was enough conservative leaders in America standing up and fighting for us. And I think part of the reason is that we have career politicians serving in Washington that serve themselves and not the people. And Tim Kaine is a great example of this. Tim Kaine has been in office for 30 years now. He was first elected in 1994 to the city council in Richmond. And he's what I call a ladder climber, right? He's jumped up the ladder from city council to mayor to lieutenant governor to senator. And he was pretty close to being the vice president of the United States as well. And I think as we travel all across our great Commonwealth, the common theme that I hear from people is that they never see Tim Kaine. They can't identify any of his accomplishments. And they really feel like career politicians like him have completely lost their way and they're ready for new representation in the United States Senate in Virginia.
You're so right. And we have a guy in the White House also that we have the same problem. We never see him. And every time that we see him, he's not the leader that we need and that we want. I understand that you are being endorsed by quite a few people in the Senate and Congress. Is that true?
Yeah. I've got tremendous relationships among a lot of the best conservatives serving in Washington today. Senator Ted Cruz from Texas endorsed me. So did Mike Lee from Utah, Mike Braun from Indiana, Pete Ricketts from Nebraska, and Tommy Tuberville from Alabama. In the House of Representatives, I've got about 30 members that have endorsed me. And I think what the bottom line is with a lot of those national endorsements is they prove that I've got the respect and the connections and relationships to make a difference for Virginia on day one after I'm elected. I've got that experience having worked in the Senate. I understand the rules, the precedent, and the procedure. And I also understand these personalities and how to negotiate with these folks. I've done that at the highest levels of our Congress, whether it was in 2017 negotiating with the Trump administration on the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, or even during the middle of 2020 and COVID when we were trying to reopen the economy through, regulatory reforms that actually unleashed innovation and expanded the free marketplace. So there's a lot of things that I've got in my experience. I think that's why you're seeing these big endorsements come out. But I also have, strong Virginians that are coming out for me. I've got several delegates, AC Cordoza down in the Virginia Beach area. I've got Ellen Campbell down in Lexington, Eric Zier in Lynchburg. We're going to be putting out some more endorsements soon. I put out Rick West, the mayor of Chesapeake. We also put out Doug Smith in the area of Rockbridge, their chairman. Morton Blackwell is the RNC committee man here in Virginia, and he endorsed my campaign last May. He's been a good friend for a long time. And, really, I think that we're building out that momentum right here in Virginia to show that I can win this nomination and I can defeat Tim Kaine.
Has there been any polling done that shows what position are you in the out of the five candidates that they are out, running for the Senate?
Yeah, there's no public polling yet, and I'm a little surprised that Roanoke College or Virginia Commonwealth University haven't put out their own polls yet. Last year, there was a hypothetical poll before the field was settled that showed Tim Kaine against Governor Youngkin, but we've known for a long time that Governor Youngkin was solely focused in 2023 on state Senate and delegate races and making sure that he could be an effective governor for all of us here in Virginia. I think he's done a fantastic job, by the way. Really proud of the work that he and our lieutenant governor and attorney general have done as Republicans down in Richmond, because it does make a big difference. And that's why it's also important to win races in 2025. Listen, after I'm elected in 2024, I'm going to do everything I can to help Republicans defeat Mark Warner in 2026, making sure that we can win those House of Delegate and state Senate races in 2025. I think that's what Republican leaders need to do. Instead, we often have this infighting among the Republican Party, and I don't think that that's healthy in terms of productivity to making sure that we can actually win. It's going to take a coalition of everyone. We know that our party is the party of ideas, right? That term's been around for a long time. And it's good to have the political rhetoric and debate existing within the Republican Party of Virginia. But in the end, when we select a nominee, I think that it's important for all Republicans to unify the coalition and to find ways to resonate with Democrats and independent voters. We're seeing that right now on the economic issues, on public safety and illegal immigration, and then, of course, on parents' rights.
I think it's so important what you just said, that we have to be united, because it's really, Washington, D.C. is really a swamp. And if we are not united, we are not going to get anywhere. The more united we are, first of all, the best out of us comes. And at the same time, we need people like yourself. We need people like Ted Cruz to be there with you, to be able to support you. You mentioned a little bit about immigration. What is your stand on immigration?
Yeah, listen, the rule of law just isn't being enforced by the open border policies that Tim Kaine and Joe Biden ultimately support. I think that they want to change the fabric of America toward a socialist nation. But we know that free market economic policies have led to the greatest level of prosperity in the history of the world. So when it comes to illegal immigration, we need to reinstate Trump's policy of remain in Mexico, where asylum seekers are returned south of the border as they wait their date on their asylum case. I think that we also need to have a change in policy when it comes to catch and release, right? They're ultimately being caught, released into the American public. And I think that we should have catch and deport, because we want to make sure that we're accommodating a legal workforce that's coming here and assimilating the right way, waiting in line. Of course, our community is filled with merit-based legal immigrants that I think are incredibly productive toward the U.S. economy and toward really what the culture of America is. But what we don't want to see is just these criminal aliens that are being sent here from Venezuela in these caravans. There's trafficking of people, drugs, sex, all along by the cartels. And, that's leading to fentanyl in our community. All about the Wakefield story in our community here in Arlington, where 4 children overdosed at Wakefield High School, and the drugs that they were using were corrupted by fentanyl. And it's happening in Loudoun. It's happening all over our great Commonwealth. I heard our governor speak recently, and I think 5 Virginians die every single day from a fentanyl overdose. But this isn't just an exposure issue of junkies or drug addicts. Fentanyl can reach the innocent as well. I heard a story from a leader in our faith community down in Prince William, where a baby died 1 week before Christmas because of exposure to fentanyl. So we need to get that poison out of our community. And I think that it's going from China to our southern border to all the communities here in Virginia and in America. So that needs to be a real focus. Then, you also obviously want to have other reforms as it pertains to visas and the entry-exit system. Prior to Biden being elected president, the visa overstays was more than half of the illegal immigration population. And so there is still a significant opportunity there, I think, to address that. And then obviously fortifying the border so that, it's harder for folks to get across here, whether that's more Border Patrol agents or, building the wall like President Trump wants to do.
Wonderful, very good. As a legal immigrant, that issue is very important to me, and it seems to be that is important to all, to most all Virginians. I am with you 100%. In reference to, there was a bill that was approved last week, I believe, that sent about $96 billion to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan. What are your thoughts in reference to about sending money all over the place when there's a need for money? First of all, we don't have that money, and second of all, there's a need for to be taking care of the people here within the U.S., within our state also. That's another important issue for us because we send enormous amounts of cash. First of all, that cash doesn't go to the right people, to the people that need it. And second of all, we don't have that money. We have to print that money to send it anywhere. So what is your position on that?
Yeah, so it's a big question, right? First of all, we already gave $120 billion in assistance, foreign aid to Ukraine throughout the war after the invasion by Russia. Vladimir Putin is not our friend. We all understand that. But Ukraine is also not a part of NATO. So I think that there needs to be a broader coalition within our European allies to step up and help defend the Ukrainians. It can't just be America. The $95 billion package that you referenced included over $60 billion in additional funding for Ukraine. And, I would rather see that money invested in Hampton Roads, in our own aircraft carriers, our naval fleet, dredging, supporting the workforce here in Virginia that ultimately provides for the national security of the American people. That's what an America First foreign policy means, because ultimately when we are stronger, it leads to stronger deterrence for foreign actors to get involved in these skirmishes and wars. And ultimately, Joe Biden is so weak, and he's always been a weak leader when it comes to foreign policy, that Hamas is threatening by doing a terrorist attack in Israel. You've got Iran sending 300 unmanned drones and missiles into Israel. You've got Russia invading Ukraine. You've got China saber rattling around Taiwan. Nobody really respects Joe Biden in the world stage. But that foreign policy is also embraced by people like Tim Kaine. And when Tim Kaine votes for $95 billion to go across our borders in foreign aid, I think that he's actually pushing us a heck of a lot closer toward World War III by engaging in this proxy war over Ukraine with Russia. And I think that ultimately creates a strengthened alliance between China and Russia that will lead us closer to the brink of World War III than anything. And, I'm 41 years old, like I mentioned at the top of the episode. I think that my children should not be involved in a forever war like my generation was as it relates to Afghanistan and Iraq. I've had a lot of friends that have gone and fought. We know about the blood and treasure that was exhausted there for 20 years. And then we saw how Joe Biden withdrew from Afghanistan, causing, the just very tragic death of, I think, 13 service members, most of them Marines.
Listen, I completely agree with what you just said. I just don't understand why people don't see it our way. That is the right way of seeing it. And I think that there's only one way that we can be safe, is by voting on November the 5th and voting for President Trump. Please correct me if I am wrong. And, I am open, but I have voted for him in 2016 to 2020, and we can have another discussion about 2020. But I will be voting for him, and there's no secret about that. And we need you in the Senate. will be making endorsements, and after June 18 is the primary. What is your position about President Trump?
Yeah, I endorsed President Trump many months ago. Listen, I think that we were safer, we were more prosperous, and we were more respected in the world when it came to President Trump's leadership. And, I worked closely with the Trump administration. I'm proud of that record. I think that he did a fantastic job as it relates to the economic issues. And we have an economic crisis today. Here in Virginia, the average household pays $12,230 more underneath Joe Biden and Tim Kaine's policies than they did underneath Donald Trump. But you know what? I'm not an average household because I'm not 2.6 people. I'm a family of 6. So for me, those annual higher costs are much, much closer to $25,000 a year. I think that when we get Donald Trump reelected, I will work with him closely on passing the next round of the Trump tax cuts. Joe Biden has been crystal clear. He wants to allow all those tax cuts to expire. That would lead to the largest tax increase in our nation's history. Then you think about our regulatory regime right now that's stifling innovation and entrepreneurship. There's a lot of people that I think would rather start up a business and take the risk, but the regulatory scheme that's in place prevents them from doing so. And it's a lot safer for them to sit behind a computer and make $55,000 or $70,000 a year. But the American dream is born on the back of the small business job creator, the entrepreneurship that really has led to, I think, all this prosperity. But small businesses are certainly being crushed today. Inflation, regulation, taxation. This is, I think, what the legacy of Bidenomics truly is. And we need to reverse that course. I think that it's only possible to do it with Donald Trump as president and with a Republican United States Senate.
Tell us a little bit about your campaign. How much have you raised? If that comes from, wealthy donors, or, how have you raised that the money that you have raised?
Yeah, so I've raised about $900,000 so far. We're working really hard to do that. Some people, Juan Carlos, they'll give me $1. And I log into my WinRed account, and I see these dollar contributors, and I'm like, you know what? That person is invested in me as a candidate. They're definitely going to be voting for me. And then I do have other donors that have given me $1,000 or $3,300. My wife and I, we are not wealthy at all, but I wanted to be able to tell donors when I called them up and solicited them for campaign contributions that my family had skin in the game. So at the beginning of my campaign, I wrote myself a $13,200 campaign contribution, and that's the maximum that a married couple can contribute for the primary and the general election. Ultimately, it's very, very expensive to run a statewide campaign in Virginia. We've got 8 million people that live here, and, we'll see what the turnout looks like for the general election. But I think about 4.3 million people in Virginia voted in 2020. And so it's expensive to get out there and do direct voter contact campaigns. You've got to be able to print palm cards, yard signs, pay for gasoline, hotels, TV ads, radio ads. There's all sorts of things. Even when you get all your volunteers together, it's nice to treat them for pizza at the end of the day. And so we want to make sure that we're a healthy campaign. A friend of mine, Sergio de la Peña, ran for governor in 2021, and he said something that I don't think he would mind me sharing, but it was really, really good advice. And the bottom line is, as you're running a campaign, there's a cycle that happens that every successful candidate actually obtains. And it's raising money, because the more money you raise, the more you can get your message out. And then the more you get your message out, the more exposure you get. The more exposure you get, the more money you raise. And that cycle is ongoing for all these successful candidates throughout America. So we do have to raise the money to make sure that we can get our message out and get the exposure to confront Tim Kaine, because Tim Kaine has about $9 million in the bank right now. He's raised over $13 million. And, he's certainly as connected as any Democrat in the entire country with the Clinton regime, and also with the Democratic National Committee, with his time as chairman there. He knows all the big donors in America. They're all supporting him. So we need to make sure that we work extra hard to raise the funding to be competitive against Kaine in November.
Out of the 5 candidates that they're running, which one do you think that it will come in second place?
That's a great question. Listen, I'm truly humbled to be a candidate myself. I really, really respect and commend all the other 4 candidates, Hung Cao, Eddie Garcia, Jonathan Emord, and Chuck Smith, because it really is something to put your name out there as a candidate. And, we'll see exactly how all the cards fall. I feel confident in our path to victory. Of course, Hung Cao has strong name ID up in Northern Virginia. He's a strong candidate. I also really like Jonathan Emord. He's been a good man running a strong campaign, and he has the ability to self-fund his race if he chooses to do that. He hasn't been raising as much money, and he's been public about that. But nonetheless, I think the 3 of us have a real good chance at defeating Tim Kaine, whoever the nominee is. I feel like it's going to be me, but I'm also committed to supporting whoever the Republican nominee is, because it's that important for us to save America. It's that important for us to reverse this leftward lunge that Tim Kaine and Joe Biden have towards socialism. And, I'm doing this for my kids and for our generation to make sure that we've got economic prosperity and opportunity, to make sure that we've got public safety in our streets, and that we end the illegal immigration crisis. And then also that we restore parents' rights in the classroom and give all K through 12 students the opportunities that they deserve as it relates to their education.
In reference of your experience in the Senate and the House, what will you change in your first 100 days?
Yeah, the first 100 days, I think, are mostly going to be confined to the things that have to happen in the United States Senate right at the beginning. A senator will be sworn in, I think, on January 2nd. And, we're going to know the results of the presidential election at that point. The inauguration is about 3 weeks later. And so much of the work of a United States senator is working on the executive branch and judicial nominations from the president. I'm sure he's going to nominate very, very strong candidates for his cabinet. And so we'll be working in the first 100 days to handle that. I also know that the debt limit suspension expires in January 2025. So we're going to have Treasury engaging in what's known as extraordinary measures, where they delay and don't have payments to certain investment funds and other expenses through Treasury. That usually lasts 3 to 5 months. So I would expect a big budget and spending negotiation to happen by June of 2025. And then the other thing is, of course, those Trump tax cuts that expire. So those are things that we know are going to happen in 2025. I think that it's a big priority for us to confront the illegal immigration crisis. I expect that on President Trump's first day in office, he'll issue a number of executive orders that calm the situation down. And, part of that will probably be sending out the National Guard and making sure that we have a military presence on the border to protect the American sovereignty. But we know that the immigration crisis is a big problem. That's something that, doesn't have necessarily a funding deadline to it immediately, but we can use the power of the purse to hold our executive branch agencies to account to ensure that we do have border security.
And I think, again, with the election of President Trump, I think things will first of all, will come down. People will see that that there is hope of prosperity, not only for the top, 1% or 10%, but for everyone. And at the same time, I think that you will be an important part in the Senate, helping, and hopefully we get a majority in the Senate and in the House. So we can move forward. I think about a month ago or a month and a half ago, I met with some congressmen, and he was, I don't want to, give any names, but one of the congressmen from Georgia told me, it's going to be amazing. Just wait and see, but it's going to be amazing that when he gets elected, we're going to do amazing things. That has been in the back of my head. And again, do you want to add anything? It's coming to our time, and but I am very thankful to have you. I hope that you come back after the primary, and we'll be in touch. And I am very thankful for your time.
Yeah, you know what, Lord, I would just add to the end here is that, we are visiting all communities in Virginia, trying to build the coalition of everyone that can actually win. I'm visiting the Hispanic communities, the Muslim communities, the Indian communities, African American, all over from Hampton Roads down to Southwest, up here in Nova, along Shenandoah. It's going to take everybody. And I think that there's enough Virginians that demonstrated in 2021 underneath the Glenn Youngkin model that they care about these public policy fights and they care about the future of America. So everybody can check out scottparkinson.com. You can chip in $1 to show that you're with us. You can chip in even more to help us get our voter contact campaign out. But I'm grateful for the support, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to participate in the podcast with you today, Juan Carlos.
Thank you, Scott, and I'm looking forward to seeing you as a numero uno.
All right. Thank you so much.
Very good. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me on the podcast this week. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep being fearless, factual, and unfiltered. I am Juan Carlos Fierro, and I will see you in the next episode.